Hi, everybody. And originally, I wanted to do a great big long piece about intuition, and then it was like a half an hour long, and I figured out no one's got time for that. So instead, I'm looking to do a series of vignettes that pick apart my experiences with and some explanation of extroverted sensing, introverted sensing, extroverted intuition, and introverted intuition. So I'm going to start with introverted sensing because that's what I'm familiar with, and it's maybe the simpler to explain, or you kind of need to understand the sensing piece before the intuition piece makes sense, because the two are inextricably linked. So, anyway, if you're an extroverted sensor and you see a ball, for instance, you see this thing in the physicality of it, you interact with it, you sort of know what it is, you can do stuff with it. That's sort of your experience with extroverted sensing. It's the feel, the touch, the look. But it's the entirety of the experience, more or less unfiltered. Introverted sensing is the senses turned toward the subject. So it's the meaning of the thing to you. It's sensing, but instead it goes into the filter of, brown, white spots, stars, concave, convex, brown ring, and it can even go into some of the other meanings that it might have for you in terms of how's this compared to other balls in its boldness. There leads to some categorization. So understanding enough bowls, you have an idea that like is this a bowl? No, it's made of bicycle chain links, but still there is a certain boldness to it and qualities to it. And so it extends also beyond bowls. It depends on, and other things. It depends on what you're interested in with your rest of your functions, because SI is just the perceiving bit that other parts of your cognitive stack then kind of twiddle. So it sort of does its thing of, here's my interpretation of what this means, and then kind of hands it off as a perceiving function to other bits to play with. So you can do things like, if your SI is tuned toward FE, you would probably think more of your SI would be tuned more toward, I know what George looks like when he's angry. I know what Anne looks like when she's happy. I know what Joe looks like when he's pensive. And so you kind of build up this repository of what people and interaction with them, how that all works. And this is where like SI can get confused with NE and SI can get confused with NI. It gets confused with NE because people think, well, I do make these leaps of imagination. When I see a tree and it's a maple tree, I think an oak tree could be there, or it's maybe a vegetable could be there, or maybe grass could be growing there. But you're kind of staying within the category of meaning generally. If you're SI over NE, you generally have kind of, you see the thing, what it means to you, and then kind of convert that into other things of similar meaning, as opposed to making a big leap. Where SI gets confused with NI is that SI itself is an abstraction, and then people may think of, well, NI is an abstraction of things, therefore I'm thinking about the nature of things, and as I perceive the nature of things and their relationships to each other, that's got to be NI. Well, not as such. SI would be more, SI can be very future focused, given that it's working on its past experiential references to look at what's going to happen in the future. So when you have the idea of like, I know what Anne looks like when she's angry, and I know what George looks like when he's angry, now I'm going to bump into Fred, and based on Fred's responses and my interaction, I'm able to know how the conversation's going and what Fred's mood is going to look like. And that's where ISFJs, for instance, are really masterful, because they can understand people really well. And then on the basis of their experiential reference, they know what people are going to do, or they can predict what people are going to do with uncanny accuracy based on what they know based on their subjective labeling of the introverted sensing of people. So that in a nutshell is SI. How I personally experience it, well, by now that should be pretty familiar, that I'll pick up a book, I'll start reading something, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this is similar to this other book, where I read this other thing. And oh, well, George R.R. Martin, I started reading Game of Thrones, and I got 100 pages into it, and I'm like, I know George R.R. Martin, I know what he's going to do because I've read his stuff in the past. 100 pages into Game of Thrones, I'm like, I know what he's going to do. I know the book series. I'm not interested. I'm done with it. Not to say that he's not a great author, but for me, it was just like, this is not my style. And I know that he's in the next 3,000 pages worth of X number of volumes of books going to do horrible things to nice people and let horrible people get away with all sorts of stuff, because that's sort of the George R.R. Martin style. And I'm like, well, based on my past experiential reference, I know that I'm not going to be able to plow through the next 2,900 pages. The first 100 pages of this was enough for me. So anyway, that was my quick take on SI. Next, I'll get into some of the other functions. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.